The security footage was grainy at the edges, the way all overnight footage looks when it has been sitting on a server for 6 weeks. Marcus Webb leaned forward in the leather chair behind his accountant's desk, the laptop screen the only light in the room, and he watched the woman on floor 12 of his hotel move through the hallway with a cart she had probably pushed 10,000 times before. He had not come to the footage looking for her. The audit team had flagged floor 12 for a supply discrepancy, something routine and small, an inventory count that did not reconcile with purchase orders from November. Marcus had asked to see the raw footage himself because he trusted his own eyes more than a summary report. He had expected to find nothing more than a stock clerk cutting corners. He had not expected what he found instead. On the screen, the timestamp read 6:47 in the morning. The woman appeared at the door of room 1204, keycard in hand, her cart waiting in the hall behind her. She was somewhere in her 40s, he guessed, wearing the gray and white uniform the housekeeping staff had worn since he'd changed the vendor 3 years ago. She moved efficiently, the way people move when a task is so familiar the body does it without instruction. She disappeared inside the room. Marcus watched. He nearly fast-forwarded. Then the camera caught her, coming back through the door, and she was holding something small between 2 fingers, lifting it up to the light in the corridor to see it better. Even in low resolution, even through the grain, he could see the ring. He stopped the footage. He leaned in closer. His chest did something he had not expected, a pull somewhere deep and sudden, because he had last seen that ring on the hand of his wife, Eleanor, 3 years and 4 months ago, the morning she died. He sat very still for a moment. Then he pressed play. The woman walked to the housekeeping cart, paused, and stood there with the ring in her hand. It was a long pause for 6:47 in the morning, when every minute of a shift is accounted for. She was deciding something. He could tell from the way she held her body, the weight in her shoulders, the stillness of her hands. He watched her look at the ring one more time. Then she put it in her apron pocket and pushed the cart toward the elevator. Marcus's first thought was that she had kept it. Then the timestamp jumped to 8:12, and she was at the front desk, and she was handing it across the counter to the morning shift supervisor, and a man in a blazer was writing something in a log. Marcus closed the laptop. He sat in the dark for a long time. He had no idea who she was, but he was going to find out. Her name was Lucian. She had worked the overnight shift on floor 12 of the Aldwych Grand for 7 years. And if you asked her why she stayed in a job that paid $13 an hour, she would have told you it was because the overnight shift meant she was home when Denise got out of school, and because the benefits included health coverage, and because she had learned long ago that a job you know how to do well is worth more than a job you are still figuring out. Denise was 16. She was the kind of teenager who did her homework at the kitchen table without being asked, who had opinions about things she read and was not shy about sharing them, and who had told her mother in September, very matter-of-factly, that she wanted to study early childhood education at the community college 2 bus rides north. The community college charged $6,400 a semester for full-time enrollment. Lucian had looked at that number when Denise showed her the brochure, and she had said, "We'll figure it out," because that was the only honest answer she had. The truth was that $13 an hour, after taxes, after the $40 monthly fee for the parking permit she needed to get to the lot by 2 in the morning, after the electric bill and the groceries and Denise's monthly asthma medication, left Lucian approximately nowhere. She had $211 in her savings account. She knew the exact number because she checked it on her phone every Friday morning when the deposit cleared. Not because she expected it to change, but because keeping an eye on it felt like the least she could do. She had been keeping an eye on things for a long time. 7 years on floor 12 meant Lucian knew every room by its habits. She knew that 1217 always had orange peels in the wastebasket because the guest who booked it monthly was on some kind of diet. She knew that the suite at the end of the hall, 1204, ran hotter than the other rooms because of something wrong with the thermostat they had never fully fixed, and that guests in 1204 tended to leave windows cracked even in November. She knew the carpet in the hallway outside 1204 had a worn strip near the door that the maintenance team had patched twice and would need to replace by spring. She knew these things because she paid attention, and she paid attention because she had decided early on that if she was going to spend her nights in this building, she was going to do the work the right way, not for recognition. There was no recognition on the overnight shift. Carl Pruitt, who supervised the Floor 12 housekeeping team and wore his radio clipped to his belt like a badge of some importance, did not hand out recognition. He handed out assignments and corrections, and he had a way of saying everything's fine that made it clear he found nothing fine at all. Lucian had learned to work around Carl the way you learn to work around a loose floorboard. You knew where it was, you stepped over it, you kept moving. The Tuesday she found the ring was ordinary in every respect until it wasn't. Room 1204 had checked out at 5:45 in the morning, early even by Lucian's standards, and the room had been flagged on her sheet for turnover by 7. She had the cart stocked and in position by 6:30, finished 1201 and 1202 first, the way she always did, worked her way down. She let herself into 1204 and went through the sequence. Stripped the bed, bagged the linens, wiped the surfaces, pulled the used towels. The guest had left the bathroom in the kind of state that suggested they had been in a hurry, damp towels on the floor, the counter still wet, a half-used shampoo bottle left standing in the shower. She was mopping the bathroom floor when she saw it. It was near the base of the vanity, half under the toe kick, the kind of place a ring falls when it slips off a wet hand and rolls without anyone noticing. She crouched and picked it up. She held it under the bathroom light. The band was gold, fine and narrow, the kind of yellow gold that has a warmth to it that a white gold does not, and the diamond set into it was not large, but it was exactly cut, the kind of cut that catches light from angles you would not expect. The inside of the band had an engraving, too small to read without her glasses, but she could see there were letters there. This was not a fashion ring. This was not something a person lost and shrugged about. This was a ring someone would be looking for. She stood at the bathroom vanity with the ring in her hand, and she thought about the number in her savings account, $211. And she thought about the community college brochure on the kitchen counter at home, and she thought about Denise at the table, doing her homework without being asked. She thought about all of it, the way you think about things when you are standing alone in a hotel bathroom at 6:47 in the morning with no one watching and every door closed. Then she put the ring in her apron pocket and pushed the cart to the end of the hall. She handed it across the front desk counter to the morning supervisor, a man named Greg who logged everything in a book with grid paper and black ink. He wrote down the room number, the time, and her name. She spelled her name for him because people always got it wrong on the first try. He told her they would post it to Lost and Found and try to reach the registered guest. She nodded and went back to her cart. She did not think much more about it. She had done what there was to do. Carl found her in the break room at 8:30, when the morning shift was coming on and the overnight crew was finishing up. He was drinking coffee from a paper cup, and he had the look he got when he was working up to saying something he thought was advice. Heard you turned in a ring from 1204, he said. That's right, Lucian said. She was pulling on her coat. Nice ring? It was a ring. I don't know what it was worth. Carl turned the cup in his hands. You know how long unclaimed items sit in that log before anyone looks at them. Greg looked at it this morning. Greg logged it, Carl said. That's different. These things sit for weeks, sometimes longer. And if nobody claims it after 30 days, policy says it goes to the finder anyway. He paused. All I'm saying is, there's a process. And sometimes the process takes so long, it's basically the same thing as just keeping it. Lucian looked at him for a moment. She zipped her coat. I'll see you Thursday, she said, and walked out. The ring sat in the lost and found log for 3 weeks. Lucian heard nothing about it. She worked her Tuesdays and Thursdays and the occasional Saturday. When someone called out, pushed the cart down the hall, stripped the beds, wiped the surfaces, pulled the towels. She checked her savings account on Friday mornings, $237 now because she had been careful with groceries, and she looked at the community college brochure on the kitchen counter and said nothing to Denise because there was nothing useful to say yet. Carl came back to her in the break room 12 days after the ring was found. He sat down across from her while she was eating her lunch, which she brought from home because the vending machine in the lobby was $1.75 a bag, and she was not spending $1.75 a bag. 3 weeks on Friday, Carl said. That's when the policy window closes. I know what the policy says, Lucian said. All I'm pointing out is that nobody's come for it. And that ring looked valuable. You saw it? Greg showed it to me. It's got a diamond in it, real one. Somebody had it appraised once. There's a jeweler's mark inside. He leaned forward. Lucian, I'm not telling you to steal anything. I'm telling you the policy is going to give it to you anyway. You just be getting there a little faster. She looked at him across the table, had his radio clipped to his belt and his paper cup and his expression, which was the expression of a man who believed he was being practical and helpful, and could not understand why she did not see it that way. When the 30 days are up, she said, and they put it in writing that it's mine, I'll decide what to do with it then. Carl shrugged. He picked up his cup. He was not angry, just resigned, the way people get when they have offered something they think is generous and been turned down for reasons they do not understand. 3 days later, a guest services letter came through internal mail to the housekeeping break room, addressed to Lucian by name. It was brief, printed on hotel letterhead, and it confirmed that the item logged on that Tuesday morning in room 1204 had remained unclaimed for 30 days and was now hers per property policy. She could collect it from the front desk at her convenience. She folded the letter and put it in her coat pocket. She went home, slept 3 hours, picked Denise up from school, and made dinner. She did not stop at the front desk that evening. She did not stop the next morning either. On Saturday, she walked past the front desk at the end of her shift, paused, and then kept going. On Sunday, she set the letter on the kitchen table and sat with a cup of tea and thought about it for a long time. The ring was worth something. She could tell that just by looking at it, and whatever it was worth was more than $237 in a savings account, and more than she had any prospect of saving between now and whenever Denise needed the first semester's tuition. She thought about how Carl had said it was the same as keeping it. She thought about the letters engraved inside the band, too small to read without her glasses. She got up, found her reading glasses on the nightstand, and sat back down. She unfolded the letter. She thought about the ring she had held for those 60 seconds in the bathroom of 1204, the weight of it, the warmth of the gold, the way it had caught the light from a direction you would not expect. She did not have the ring. She had never picked it up from the desk. She folded the letter back along its crease and put it on the counter beside the brochure. Then she went to bed. On Monday, she went back to work and told Greg at the front desk that she did not want the ring, that the hotel should keep trying to locate the owner, and that if they needed her name off the paperwork, she was happy to do that. Greg looked at her with an expression that was half surprise and half something more careful, and he said he would make a note of it. She did not think about the ring again after that. Across town, in an office on the 43rd floor of a building on Wacker Drive, Marcus Webb was thinking about almost nothing else. He had spent 26 years building a hotel company that no one associated with his name, because he had structured it that way on purpose. 6 properties in 4 cities, all running under a management company, the ownership buried in an LLC that his lawyers had advised and his accountant maintained. He was not a person who appeared in press releases. He had been to his own flagship Chicago property, the Aldwych Grand, exactly twice in 7 years, once for a renovation walkthrough and once for a fire code inspection, both times without identifying himself to the staff. He was 61 years old. His wife Eleanor had died of a sudden cardiac event 3 years and 4 months ago on a Saturday morning in March. She had been 58. They had been married 31 years. The ring had been Eleanor's. He had given it to her on their 5th anniversary, a yellow gold band with a round diamond, simple because she did not like things that were not simple. And he had put her initials and his own inside the band, E and M, engraved by a jeweler on Clark Street, who had done the work in an afternoon. Eleanor had worn it every day for 26 years. She had worn it so consistently that there was a faint indentation on her finger where it had rested. When she died, he had taken it off her hand himself, in the hospital room, before the rest of the family arrived. He had kept it in a drawer in his bedroom since then. He had not been able to look at it for very long, but he had not been able to put it anywhere he could not reach it either. His son Derek had borrowed the ring 8 weeks ago, which Marcus had not known until he saw the footage. Derek was 29, careless in the particular way of people who have never had to be careful, and he had apparently used the suite at the Aldwych Grand for a weekend with a woman he was seeing, and had, at some point, taken the ring out of the drawer in his father's bedroom without asking and brought it along, for reasons Marcus could not fully reconstruct, and had decided not to ask about in detail, because the conversation would have gone badly and would not have returned the ring. The ring was now in the lost and found log of his own hotel. His wife's ring, the one with her initials inside, was sitting behind the front desk at the Aldwych Grand because a woman on the overnight housekeeping shift had picked it up off the floor of a hotel bathroom and walked it to the desk instead of putting it in her pocket, which she could have done, which anyone would have understood, which Marcus himself, sitting in that dark office on Wacker Drive, was not entirely certain he would not have done in her position. He had asked his accountant to pull the name from the log the same night he watched the footage. Lucien. 7 years on the overnight crew. Floor 12. He had asked what the policy outcome was going to be on the ring, and his accountant had checked with the property manager and reported that the 30-day window had elapsed and the item had been formally tendered to the finder. Marcus waited for the next update. It came 4 days later. She had turned it down. He read that twice. He had the accountant confirm it with the property manager directly. Yes, the woman from housekeeping, Lucien, had told the front desk she did not want the ring, that the hotel should keep trying to find the owner. Marcus put the phone down. He looked out the window at the city for a while. He came to the hotel on a Thursday morning in January, 6 weeks after he first watched the footage, wearing a coat that was good but not conspicuous and no name badge of any kind. He'd called ahead only to the general manager, a woman named Patricia who had run the property for 4 years and who was the only person on site who knew his face. He had asked Patricia to have Lucian scheduled for her regular shift and to tell her only that there was a matter related to the lost and found item from room 1204 that needed to be addressed in person. Patricia had said she would take care of it. Lucian was on floor 12 at 7 in the morning, midway through her rounds, when her radio crackled and Carl's voice told her to come down to the lobby conference room when she had a moment. The phrasing was Carl's, which meant it could mean anything, and she finished the room she was in, stripped the last pillowcase, and rode the elevator down with her cart before leaving it by the housekeeping closet near the lobby. The conference room was the small one off the side of the lobby, used for check-in overflow and the occasional vendor meeting. When she opened the door, she found Patricia standing near the window and a man she did not recognize seated at the far end of the table. She also found Carl. He was standing near the door, which meant he had already been there for some time and had been told to wait. And he had the expression of someone who knows more than he is letting on, but cannot decide whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. The man at the table stood when she came in. He was tall, somewhere in his 60s, and the coat he'd hung over the chair beside him was the coat of a man who could afford a better coat than most people she had ever spoken to. He did not look like an auditor or a property inspector. He looked like someone carrying something private. "Lucian," Patricia said, "this is Marcus Webb. He's the owner of the Aldwych Grand." It was a strange thing, to have that sentence land in a room you had worked in for 7 years. Lucian looked at the man, then at Patricia, then back at the man. She was still holding her key card in one hand from the elevator. "I apologize for coming unannounced," Marcus said, and his voice was measured and quiet. "I wanted to speak with you directly. I didn't think a phone call was the right way to do this." He set something on the table, and she could see from where she was standing that it was the ring. The yellow gold ring with the diamond set into it, the one she had picked up from the bathroom floor 6 weeks ago and carried to the front desk and tried to give back twice. "That ring belonged to my wife," he said. "She died 3 years ago. I didn't know it had been taken from my home until I saw your name in the lost and found log and went back through the security footage to understand how it got here." So, the room was very quiet. Carl was not moving near the door. Lucian looked at the ring on the table. She thought about the letters inside the band, too small to read without her glasses, E and M. She thought about standing at the bathroom vanity at 6:47 in the morning with the ring in her hand, thinking about the number in her savings account, and then walking it out to the desk anyway. She had not known whose initials those were. She had not known anything except that the ring belonged to someone. "I'm glad it's back," she said. Marcus looked at her for a moment. He was a man who had built things carefully for a long time, and she could see in his expression that he was working through how to say the next thing. "I also want to speak with you about something else," he said. "Patricia tells me you declined to keep the ring even after the 30-day window passed, and the item was formally yours under policy." "It wasn't mine," she said. "Under the law, it was." "Under the law, maybe. But I knew it wasn't mine. Someone was going to be looking for it." He picked the ring up and held it in his hand for a moment, and the weight of the gesture was visible to everyone in the room, the way a person holds a thing that is not just a thing. "I've been in this business for 26 years, Marcus said, "and in 26 hotels across 4 cities. I've never seen anyone do what you did. I've seen people keep things worth a lot less." He paused. "I've reviewed your personnel file. 7 years on this property. $13 an hour." She did not say anything. I'd like to change both of those things, he said. Carl moved slightly near the door. It was a small movement, the shift of a person who realizes a floor is changing under them. Marcus set a folded letter on the table beside the ring and slid it toward her. She unfolded it. Her hands were steady. The letter was on the company letterhead, signed by Marcus and countersigned by Patricia, and it laid out three things plainly. First, a raise to $21 an hour, effective the first of the following month. Second, a full company-funded scholarship for 2 years of community college tuition for her dependent, which the letter named as Denise, which meant someone had looked at her HR file carefully enough to know her daughter's name. Third, a named commendation, which would be posted in the lobby of the Aldwych Grand, acknowledging her integrity and her service. She read it twice. She read it again. The number $21 an hour looked like something she had seen in a dream and was not sure was there in waking. 2 years of tuition. Denise's name on the letter. She pressed her hand flat against the paper on the table. She did not perform anything. She did not reach for Marcus's hand or find a speech about gratitude. She just stood with her palm on that piece of paper, and she breathed, and for a moment her face showed everything it had been holding for a very long time. 7 years of $13 hours and Friday morning savings account checks, and the community college brochure on the counter, and $237. All of it right there in the conference room of the hotel she had cleaned for 7 years, in front of the owner she had never known existed. Then she said, very quietly, "She's been wanting to go since September." Marcus nodded. "She'll go." Patricia had tissues in her bag. She put them on the table without comment. Carl had not said a single thing since Lucian walked in. He was looking at the floor near the door, and his expression was the expression of a man reconstructing an advice he had given, an advice about processes and 30-day windows, and basically the same as keeping it, and finding it very small now in this room. In the weeks that followed, the commendation went up in the lobby. It was a framed notice, mounted on the wall near the front desk between a city fire, safety certificate, and a guest services award from 3 years prior. It named Lucian, it named the date, and it described in plain language what she had done and what it had meant to the property's ownership. The overnight crew saw it. The morning crew saw it. The front desk staff walked past it every shift. Carl walked past it too. He did not make any more suggestions about processes in the break room. He was still on floor 12, still with his radio clipped to his belt, and Lucian was still on floor 12 pushing a cart she had pushed for more than 7 years, but the room between them had changed in a way that did not require anyone to say so. The raise came through on the February 1st paycheck, and Lucian checked her account on that Friday morning and sat with her phone in her hand in the parking lot for a while before she started the car. $21 an hour. She had not said the number out loud yet. She said it to herself now, quietly, in the car, and it felt like solid ground after a long time on ice. She told Denise that weekend. She had not told her anything before, not about the ring, not about the conference room, not about the letter, because she had not known how to explain it without it sounding like something that only happened in stories. She sat down with Denise at the kitchen table, the same table where the community college brochure had been sitting for 3 months, and she put the letter in front of her. Denise read it. She read it the way she read everything, carefully and all the way through, and then she looked up at her mother. 2 years, she said. 2 years, Lucian said. Denise looked at the letter again. She was 16, and she was not given to outward displays. She had her mother's way of keeping things inside until she was sure of them. But her eyes were bright, and she was holding the letter with both hands. "You found a ring," Denise said. "I found a ring, and I took it to the desk." And the man who owns the hotel just... Denise paused, searching for the word. He just gave you this? He did. Denise was quiet for a moment, thinking it through with the careful attention she gave things. Was it a nice ring? Lucian smiled. It was the first full smile she had managed in a while. It was a very nice ring, she said. Denise set the letter flat on the table and smoothed it with her palm the way her mother had done in the conference room, a gesture so familiar that it crossed the room like a quiet recognition. Mom, she said. I know, Lucian said. That was enough. Kindness given freely does not stop when no one is watching. It goes on somewhere, finding its way, until eventually someone who was meant to see it does. Spring came to Chicago slowly that year, the way it always does, teasing warmth in February and taking it back until April. Lucian's shifts did not change. She still came in at 2 in the morning when the night was dark and the lobby was quiet, and the elevator opened on floor 12 like it always had. But the cart felt different when you were not counting every dollar against every hour. The hallway felt different when the walls held a framed notice with your name on it. She started calling the community college in March, working through the scholarship paperwork with the admissions office, getting Denise enrolled for the fall term. There was a woman in the financial aid office named Rosa who answered the phone every time Lucian called and who knew the file by heart after the third call. Rosa was brisk